Hello and welcome to the channel for Sky Valley Midwifery. Sky Valley is a home birth practice located in Central Washington that has been offering care to our community since 2015. For those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Taylor Blazina and I am a birth educator for Sky Valley who has personally experienced 2 out-of-hospital births myself under the care of licensed midwives. This video is going to be a part 1 of 3-part series where we will focus on labor overall over the course of the series, and in today's video, part 1, will focus on early labor. This video series is created specifically for individuals who are having naturally occurring unmedicated labors in the out-of-hospital birth setting, but it can be applicable to really anybody. I want to preface this video by letting you guys know that, because as the video goes on into active labor is where you're going to see the variations that might veer away from the progression that you might experience if you're having a medicated labor, or if you're having a labor that is being medically induced through the use of synthetic drugs. So, what is early labor versus active labor? Early labor is the point where your body has deemed that it's ready to go into the process of labor and it's going to start contracting and dilating the cervix. Contrary to what you might think as of like movies that you see, like Hollywood movies that portray labor. Labor does not always begin by, oh my goodness, my water broke. And then all of a sudden you're having these, whoa, oh my goodness, I'm having these so painful contractions. Just throw that idea out the window. I'm not saying that those scenarios can't happen, but what I'm saying is that in most scenarios, that's not going to be the progression into labor. You're going to get this time period where you ease on in. You ease on into labor. You think about the body is capable of experiencing unmedicated labor. I mean, your body's going to give you all of the resources necessary to do that if everything is lining up where your body's going into labor naturally. You know, if you've made it this far and you're having a very low risk pregnancy, your body's going to give you the tools to get through a low risk labor. And if you want to know more about what low risk is, I'd encourage you to go to our website. There's a link in our channel and learn a little bit more about what creates a good candidate for out-of-hospital birth. Anyway, so that being said, let's talk about some specifics of early labor. What else is happening in your body? So the cervix is going to start to want to dilate. And because of that, you might see what we call a bloody show, which that's going to be where most of the time people see this when they go to the bathroom and then they wipe and you look down and it looks like your mucus plug, but it's got a little bit of a tinge to it, either a little bit pink, a little bit red, a little bit brown. What that color variation from just clear mucusy discharge is as your cervix begins to pull away, it's going to cause a little bit of bleeding to happen, just a little tiny bit as the cervix peels away from the membrane of that your baby's in. So that's where that comes from. So in a very typical early labor pattern, your body's going to ease into contractions. Active labor is the point in which you're having timeable contractions that are close enough together that you get that consistent cervical change. But early labor is going to be the process where the body it eases into that progression. It creates the hormones needed for you to be able to cope with the intensity of active labor. So with that hormone shift, you might feel a little different. You might feel like you need to go empty your bowels more. That's your body's, could be a very normal response to the hormones increasing in your body. So more frequent bowel movements. Sometimes people can feel a little bit hot, a little bit cold. Let's see, what else? Sometimes people feel a little tiny bit shaky. It really just depends on the person, but just know that with that hormone shift, you can just feel a little different. sometimes even a little nauseous, not in a horrible way. It's just your body getting used to the changes that are occurring to prepare you for active labor. Now, contractions start slow. And what I mean by that is that you're going to ease into this light cramping. It's not going to all of a sudden be just this massive contraction. You're going to have light cramping that a lot of people, myself included, would compare to menstrual cramps. And I say that because if you've had menstrual cramps prior to this experience, where they're very low in the pelvis, like where your uterus used to be prior to being this pregnant, full-term pregnant, that's the location that you most of the time feel that very first sensation first. You pair that sensation with what's going to feel more like a Braxton Hicks. And a lot of people do experience Braxton Hicks contractions throughout their third trimester. Some people don't notice them. So for those of you who are not familiar with what that sensation's like, it's this overall tightening of the entire uterus. So while it doesn't have a sensation per se attached to it, it doesn't have if you were to lightly pinch your arm, you feel a sensation. It's more of just if you took your arms like this and squeeze inward, it's not I don't want to use the word painful, but it's not, I'm going to use the word painful. I don't mean it though. It's not a painful sensation. It's just a squeezing. So overall it's a squeezing, and then you can feel that crampy, like a menstrual crampy sensation down low at the same time. That is the best way that I can describe an early labor contraction. And those last at first pretty short. They can be closer to maybe 30 seconds to maybe 45 seconds, and can have anywhere from maybe 5 minutes to 10 minutes apart from each other. And they might bounce around by being a little bit closer, like 5 minutes, to a little bit longer, like 10 minutes apart. And this is the body's way of just figuring out how to contract. Your uterus has prepared prior to this, but hasn't had the chance to really just give a good contraction, because prior to this, your body wanted to keep the baby in. So you wouldn't have wanted contractions prior to early labor. So that is the first sensations that you might experience with early labor. And as far as time period goes for early labor, this looks so different for everybody individually, and it really depends on your body and your baby. Where is your baby in your body? Is it going to want to try to move the baby to better align with the pelvis before it hops into active labor? Or maybe you've had quite a few Braxton Hicks prior to starting early labor, so your body's pretty attuned to figuring out how to start that contracting process, versus someone who might not have, and the body wants a little bit longer to really get used to that sensation where it's fully encompassing a contraction. So that looks different for everybody, but that is the difference between early labor and that active labor. You're having consistent contractions. They're all encompassing. You know what I mean? So at this point, I want to specify for those of you having a licensed midwife attend your labor, the midwife is not going to be joining you for this portion of labor. And there's a specific reason why. So this part of labor, this early labor pattern, can stretch out for some individuals over the course of days. I don't want to scare you, because like I had mentioned earlier, this is not a process that's going to sweep you off your feet and be all encompassing. Early labor is something that you can do while you're still going through the motions of daily life. And I would encourage everyone to do that, just in case your body does need a couple starts and stops of this early labor process in order to fully get going. Some people say that a couple days prior to actually going into active labor, for a handful of hours every night before they went to bed, they experienced this type of sensation. Some individuals, it just carries right on through into active labor. So because of that, and because of the lack of that intensity, and they're not happening short enough together where your baby's really being affected by this process, it's not medically necessary at this point for your midwife to attend and stay with you. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't contact your midwife at this point. You absolutely should contact your midwife and let them know what's going on in your body. And then you and your midwife can make a plan on when to check in, at what point she might want to in person come see you, take your vitals, listen to your baby, so on and so forth. But they're not going to be staying with you. And truly, in an unmedicated, a natural labor where your body is initiating this process, it is really important to take that time where you don't need the medical intervention to really step inside of yourself and your space and be ultimately comfortable. The more comfortable you are and the more safe and secure that you feel in your space, the more likely your body's going to carry on over into that active labor pattern. So what are some things that you and your partner or your support person could do to be proactive about labor starting? So prior to that active labor starting, what can you do? My number one recommendation would be to take advantage of this time and get some rest, whatever that looks like. If it's nighttime, try to sleep. If it's daytime, try to nap, or at least just lay down and close your eyes and build up some energy. Because as I'm sure you can guess, active labor is going to take a lot of energy and a lot of self-power to get through that process. So take this time that you're gonna have enough of a break to really relax. Throw some headphones in, relax, try to sleep, hydrate. Another great thing that you can do is make sure that you're really sipping on water or some sort of non-caffeinated beverage like herbal tea, and use the bathroom routinely. So emptying out your bladder is also going to be important. You want to be very nicely hydrated, but you also don't want to leave a full bladder because your baby's going to be descending into that space where your bladder would live, or your bladder does live. So if it's full, that's going to be another obstacle that your baby is going to have to navigate around. So, fun fact, pee a lot. Other things that I personally recommend to anybody going into early labor is if you feel like you need to go to the bathroom and you need to empty your bowels, just sit there and let it happen. This is a great time period. Clear everything out, make lots of space for that baby, and you're by yourself at that point because active labor, a lot of people really enjoy that support, but early labor, you really can just be comfortably by yourself and just take that moment for some privacy. I'm not saying that you won't get lots of privacy, especially with a midwife during active labor, but you yourself might want some more hands-on support during that time. So using the bathroom's not nearly as comfortable as it would be in early labor. Another thing I'd recommend is to nourish your body with something that's going to be both protein rich, yet easily digestible. So something that would be easily digestible, but would still meet that protein and healthy fat requirement would be like a soup or stew where the meat is nicely cooked down. Let's see, other things that would be good. Really think about your comfort foods. If you eat rice, a dish with some meat and rice is really good. Something that has that warm, maybe broth component. Really anything that sounds good at this point. It doesn't necessarily have to be. You don't have to focus and fixate on the easily digestible point because at this point you're going to have quite a bit of time to still digest. So something that sounds good. But aim for that protein and fat because you're going to need it. You're going to want that energy supply, and it is very hard to convince someone that's going through active labor to try to eat something that has meat in it. It's just not as appealing. So that's my other recommendation. My last recommendation is movement. So pair that rest with movement in your body. Really depends on where your baby's at in your body, but with how you want to move your body, and your midwife will give you some very specific recommendations on where they'd recommend that you want to help encourage your baby to move. But all babies tend to want to move into this left occiput anterior position, which means that the back of their head is towards the front of your pelvis, where there's that big large room where your pubic symphysis is, and then their back ideally is going to end up spine right along your tummy. So movement in general is just going to open up your pelvis and allow the baby to shimmy into that position, because most babies want to go into that position. There is a labor positional circuit that April has concocted that I will show you, that I recommend for anybody, regardless of what position your baby is starting out in. That is wonderful for both early labor and active labor. So let me get that going, and I will show you visually what that circuit entails. So this circuit that I'm about to show you is a collection of body positionings that have come mostly from spinningbabies.com, which I highly recommend that anybody having a baby, regardless of what birth location you've chosen, check out spinningbabies.com. Their mission is to educate people on how babies fit in the pelvis and how they come out during labor, and ways that you can set yourself up to aid that process in happening, because regardless of what you do, your baby's going to find a certain way to fit out your pelvis, and you can either just relax into that process and trust that eventually you'll get there, or you can try to be a little bit more proactive about opening up your pelvis in a way that you can shimmy that baby right down in where they need to go. So that's what inspired us for this circuit. So April Haugen, our midwife up in Ellensburg and the owner of Sky Valley, created this circuit where she put 4 different positions that are recommended from Spinning Babies into a circuit that you do continuous from start to end position for about 20 to 30 minutes in each position while you're having contractions to help move that baby down into the pelvis. I took it upon myself to name this circuit the Haugen Hoedown. Haugen is April's last name. And Hoedown is emphasis on how much I have personally seen this circuit work for people. By the first position to the last, by the last position, I've always joked that, okay, the party has started. Labor is, it's happening. Everybody grab your lassos and yeehaw your way through active labor. It's great. I love it, right? Everyone loves the idea that they can help their body through the process. So without further ado, let me show you what these positions are. I apologize, I'm not a professional camera crew by any means. I'm just a girl with a passion for education, so hang tight here. Okay, so position number 1 is going to be a hands and knees position. I'd recommend that you do it on the floor as opposed to the bed. The bed is squishy and you really want that support underneath you. So I don't have one here, but get a blanket that's squishy enough that your knees aren't hurting, and then get a pillow or some sort of pad for your face to be able to really get down into, so hips are up and then your upper body gets all the way down on the ground. So face on the ground, and ideally as much of your chest as you can get on the ground, and then just sink into that position. The benefits from this position is that it's both squaring up your pelvis and really drawing the uterus out of the tight fit of your pelvis and giving the baby room to shimmy and get into that position that I was referring to earlier, without the constriction from your pelvis. So do that position, and then say after 20 to 30 minutes, you're going to pop into this next position. Oh goodness. That's called the Walters position, and you're going to want to do this one on ideally a bed. I'd recommend a bed because of the height. So I have a couch behind me, and for this video, we're going to make that work. But this one is going to be where get all the way on the edge of your bed. So say this is the end of a bed, and your pelvic, your hip bones, Feel your hip bone? You're gonna wanna get those as close as you can to the edge of your bed. So sit where your hip bones are in line with the edge. And I really do mean, it feels like you're gonna slip off the end of the bed, but that really is a key player in this position. So you're there, legs squared up, and then you're gonna lean all the way back. So like I said, this is a couch, but imagine you're on your bed, lay flat back, and just let your legs dangle down, like so. And what that one does is it really opens the front of your pubic symphysis and creates some pressure underneath to encourage the baby to roll away from your back into that open space in the front. So that's position 2. Position 3 is you're gonna wanna lay on your left side, ideally, on your bed with something in between your legs. So if you have a peanut ball, fantastic. Your midwife's gonna have a peanut ball, ideally. So if you're in active labor and your midwife is there, take advantage of that. But if you're not quite there yet and you're in early labor and you're doing this by yourself, grab some pillows. So grab this pillow for demonstration's sake. And you're gonna wanna get on your side, nice and flat, and then stick that pillow in between your legs like so, and then lay on down. And let's review, okay? You got your hip bone again, right here. This is gonna be your access point for all these positions. Feel where your hip bone's at. Push that point out as much as you can. This position's called a backwards C. And that hip bone is gonna be the farthest point of your C outwards from your spine. So this is another position that's just encouraging the opening of the front of your pubic bone. And as opposed to doing just the Walters, you're now on your side, where ideally you've gotten the baby to the point where they're on your side, and it's just gonna keep pushing them upward towards bringing their back towards your front. So then once that position's done, the last position that we're gonna recommend is to get back up on your knees again and get a birth ball or your couch, and you're gonna get up where, say this is a birth ball, I'm leaning on my birth ball, I'm gonna stick one of my legs up, just like that. So I'm leaning up against the ball and I'm just opening up this hip. And I'd say with this one, every time you have a contraction, when it's over, put this leg down, go to the next one. And then just keep opening. And that's very similar to, like, here, I'll show you. So imagine that this is like this is your pelvis. Both sides of your pelvis, you're just shaking. You know, like when you sift things like that, the more you move it like that, things are gonna come out the bottom. And that's the goal, right? The baby's gonna come out the bottom. So on our website and on our blog, I have a blog post put up right now that talks about all the different things we just talked about early labor. There is a picture demonstration of the Haugen Hoedown that if you need to reference that or save it in your bookmarks for when it's go time, I would highly recommend having that one on deck. All right, well, thank you, everybody. That is the end of our early labor part 1 video, and stay tuned. In the next week or so, I'll get up part 2 where we talk about all things active labor. Thank you.